here at DRCOG. It is my extreme pleasure to be able to welcome you to the inaugural meeting of the Building Decarbonization Technical Committee. Really appreciate all of you stepping up and your willingness to serve and help advise us as we pursue this really important effort on behalf of the region. Couple of housekeeping items before we jump into the agenda. For those that have not been here before, welcome. There are restrooms out any of these doors to the hallway, and hang a right down the hallway through a door, and you'll find the restrooms on the left-hand side down that way. There's Wi-Fi available in the room. The log-on information is written up on the board at the front of the room. When using the mics, they are pretty directional, so when you're speaking to the mics, try to get a little close and at least speak into the mic. If you turn away very much, and I have a tendency to do that because I like to look at people when I'm talking, so just be aware of that. When you're ready to speak, your mic should be muted next to the microphone image icon on the mic. When you're ready to speak, just hit that to turn the red light on, and you'll know you're being picked up when the red light comes up on the mic. Oh, there's coffee out in the hallway as well. Help yourself. There are nameplates up on the counter over towards the front of the room. So if you haven't picked yours up, please do. If you don't happen to have, everyone should have one. If you aren't able to find one, let us know and we'll have one for the next meeting. I know we do have a few folks that are online. Thankfully, the weather turned out really well this morning compared to what we were afraid it might have been this morning. So we did make the call yesterday to keep the meeting in person, especially for this first meeting. Hopefully everyone will have a chance either before or after the meeting to have there a little bit and speak a little bit with each other. So fortunately for us, we made the right call given the weather didn't turn out too badly. That could have gone another way. So for those folks that are online, so when we do in-person meetings here at DRCOG, we do allow public testimony virtually for our meetings. We want to make sure if someone just wants to provide public comment to a meeting, we don't want to make them have to come all the way down here just to speak and then have to leave or stick around if they didn't. Allow public comment virtually. For our in-person meetings, we do ask that members and alternates participating in the meeting do attend in person. So we're not going to have folks sort of participating remotely during the meeting. If there are ever any health or extraneous circumstances that you really need some accommodation and to participate in the meeting, please let us know ahead of time and so that we can do that. We definitely want to accommodate folks' needs. And that we can instructions. We'll start around the room. I'll start at the front corner. Just your name and affiliation. Which we've got a big group, so kind of want to get through that part, and then we'll move into public comment and the meat of the agenda. A heads up: I'm not going to be the chair of this committee for the duration. At the next meeting, we will be having elections for board or for committee chair and vice chair. And so we'll get some instructions out at the end of that process. Start at the front with introductions, please.
Hi, my name is Amanda Perkins, and I'm with Adams County.
Good morning. I'm Bridger Tomlin, City of Westminster, and I'm with Jefferson County.
Jeff Wong with the City of Lakewood, also Jefferson County.
Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Jonathan Cohen, and I serve as the Director of the Climate Initiatives Department for the City of Boulder.
Good morning. My name is Susie Strife, and I'm with Boulder County.
John White, Town of Castle Rock.
Adam Sanderson, Longmont Power and Communications.
Morning, y'all. Holly Harris, Building Decarbonization Coalition.
Morning, Robert Spots, Denver Regional Council of Governments.
Josh Schwank, DRCOG staff.
Morning, Martin Postma, Principal Planner, City of Thornton.
Hello, my name is Gabrielle Rink. I'm with Center for Energy and Environment.
Hi, I'm Melody.
Morning, everyone. I'm Brooke Pike with Energy Outreach, Colorado.
Hi, I'm Lucas Hagen. I'm the Research and Policy Manager at the Neighborhood Development Collaborative, a coalition of affordable home builders.
Good morning. Sergio Cordova, Business Agent with Pipefitters Local 208.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Clay McComb, Denver Regional Council of Governments.
Good morning, all. This is Mac Prather with Denver Regional Council of Governments.
Garrett McDaniel, City and County of Broomfield.
And Jan, City and County of Denver Climate Action Office.
John Lamons, Energy Efficient Business Coalition Volunteer.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Chris Selk with Denver Regional Council of Governments.
Good morning, everyone. Gregory Miao with Denver Regional Council of Governments.
Carolyn Clam, DRCOG staff.
Great. Everyone passed the first test with the microphones. Pretty flawless.
Good.
Congratulations. Thank you for doing that. Do you want to move into public comment? I don't know if there's anyone in the room in person that wanted to provide any public comment to the committee this morning. Maddie doesn't have anything. Anyone online for public comment for the committee this morning? Right, thank you. We have a pretty full agenda really to ground the committee in the background on this work. I know many of you have partnered with us throughout the development of this process in one way or another, and so there are varying levels of familiarity with the ins and outs of this program, so important to the region. So we really wanted to ground everyone with a lot of background on the history and mission of the program. We'll have summaries of the major program elements from the program leads at DRCOG staff, and have some opportunity for discussion. We want to hear from you all as well. But this is all to set you up for really important decisions that are coming down the pike to you to advise us on really important technical and policy issues that we're going to have to grapple through as we implement this program over the next several years. So with that, I'll hand it off to Robert Spots.
Hey, all. Yeah, thanks so much for agreeing to be on this committee, and thank you for making your way down here today. We're super excited. I know a lot of you are very familiar with this program, but for some may not be as much. So myself and kind of the 4 program managers of this program are going to give you a rundown of the program overall real quick here. Real quick, just to address what may be the elephant in the room, we currently do have access to our EPA funding, and we are currently communicating with EPA. So we're all good on that front. We kind of assume we're waiting for some future guidance, but we're currently just executing the current contract we have with EPA, hiring staff, bringing vendors on board, and just like so excited that we get to do this thing and honored. So I'm Robert Spots. I'm managing this program overall. It really is like the honor of my career to be doing this and to be working with all these amazing people. And I'll just kind of run through how we got here really quick and what we're thinking moving forward. So for those not familiar, the DRCOG region is really large and really diverse in terms of its landscape, much bigger than several states out there. 3.4 million people, that's a lot of buildings that we're trying to decarbonize in this region. This effort kind of got kicked off through a portion of the Inflation Reduction Act, the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant Program. And the first step was making $3 million planning grants available to states and $1 million planning grants available to the largest 70-ish metropolitan statistical areas in the country. So DRCOG took on that role with Maddie back there being hired under that grant and leading this really amazing planning effort, which led to the region's first ever climate action plan, the priority climate action plan, which kind of identified like our priority areas that we needed to address. Maddie is currently working on the comprehensive climate action plan, which will be completed by around the end of this year. You can see our inventory over there. It's a simplified version of the inventory. It looks maybe different than some of the state inventory. It's really focused on end uses, which are kind of the things that local governments can control. And if you look at that pie chart, you can see there's a big problem there for us, and it's buildings. And so that's why I think a lot of the focus of what became our implementation grant was on buildings. And in January 2024, the DRCOG board voted unanimously to pursue this building decarbonization grant through that same climate pollution reduction grant program. So the idea was not created by DRCOG. It was really created by our local government staff. A lot of them have various initiatives in this space in building decarbonization, and I think they recognized they were hitting this ceiling together where, you know, there's only so far a jurisdiction can do in terms of advertising this stuff, in terms of a regional workforce, statewide workforce. And so they really kind of banded together. Probably some folks in this room had something to do with that and formed what they called the Front Range Beneficial Electrification Network, or FRBN, that eventually became supported by Xcel Energy through their Partners in Energy program. Partners in Energy has a great partner to us. They've supported us in terms of administration and getting coordinated through this entire grant development process. So really appreciate them. But you know, the goal of this program was really to tackle the market of building, heating, and cooling and efficiency to move towards electrification and recognizing we go further if we go together. A grant writing team was formed. I am so sorry if you did something and I left your name off here. There were so many people that touched this thing. But these folks were really the war room folks that were meeting once a week in person all day to get this grant written and formed. And then following that, they kind of became the transition team to get our RFPs going. I think we counted at some points there was about 60 local government staff touching this grant every single week. Just an amazing collaboration of a lot of brilliant minds that put this thing together. We also got 90 letters of support, including all of our currently, at the time, the federally elected officials for our region. And before, but if you can get 90 letters of support, you can do literally anything. That was a monumental challenge. I'm going to give props to Mara Owen from North Glen, who really wrangled these. So, and many of your names are on these letters of support, so we really appreciate you contributing in that aspect as well. It all led to our work plan. This work plan is available on our website. It's a 25-page document. It's really polished. It's really dense because it had to be only 25 pages. And that's kind of the basis of our contract with EPA. So if you're looking for like what we've kind of said we would do, it's all in there. It's all on our webpage. However, it's 25 pages sounds like a lot, but for the kind of depth and breadth of this program, it gives us a lot of wiggle room here so for like our comms plan is like one paragraph or two paragraphs saying conceptually what we want to do. We have a lot of agency in terms of like how we're going to actually implement this thing. And we're here because in July, we were awarded this grant for $199.7 million. Really excited about the potential transformational impact we're going to have here. So our mission, I think I'm talking to a bunch of experts in this room, but you're probably aware that we believe the technological solutions are there, but there's a lot of barriers to adoption right now, right? And we're trying to knock down those barriers one by one with these programs. So there is limited awareness about the fact that heat pumps even exist, or electrification, or the importance of efficiency. There aren't workforce and contractors that want to do this, and not enough folks trained in these spaces. The upfront cost can be prohibitive for folks, even though you may in the long term get lower costs and emission savings. And there's a patchwork of regulatory landscape. So we are a home rule state. It can be very complicated for folks to install these things throughout the region as they cross boundaries, invisible boundaries that most residents don't really care about. We are also doing this through a lens of equity. We are still planning on doing this through a lens of equity. Honest, these jurisdictions, these geographies don't really exist in terms of the federal government anymore. But in Colorado, EnviroScreen still does exist to help us kind of evaluate where our region's most vulnerable populations are and how to help them. And we are still planning on investing in the residents that need the most help in this region, and we have the opportunity to do that still. So I'm just going to do a quick overview of the program in whole, $200 million overall. The first kind of tier is really services for homes and building owners based on the need. So that's full service, 100% free building decarbonization and efficiency for low income folks, advising to help guide residents and building owners through the electrification and efficiency process, and then incentives and rebates to make it more cost effective for them. That stood up on a layer of supports that includes developing our workforce, getting our contractors on board, getting them excited about this, building policy collaborative that will kind of homogenize and elevate building policies throughout this region, and then a $6 million innovation fund with grants to small businesses, local governments, nonprofits that drive innovation in this space, all built on this pillar of co-creation through community engagement, education, and marketing. So big picture, $200 million budget. We plan through this program to engage 1.6 million people, to have 1,600 residences retrofit, over 50,000 clients advised through our energy advising program. All of our jurisdictions supported, 40,000 rebates, at least 25 grants awarded through the innovation program, and almost 5,000 workers trained. And we believe that by tackling the kind of entire market at the same time, we can really drive this change and make it so that we work ourselves out of a job, that we no longer need to be a program because it's the new way of doing it. I'll also mention that the City and County of Denver, Boulder, and Boulder County, who have been amazing regional partners throughout this entire program, have pledged to kind of divert their own community's resources through this program eventually. We're kind of figuring out the flavor of that, and you all have a decision through that, but about $73 million of in-kind staff time and dollars being funneled through this program. So super excited about that partnership as well. And we're not operating alone here. Even after we were awarded, the Clean Heat Plan from Xcel Energy was released. So we recognize that these kind of 5 organizations, the Collective Clean Energy Fund, the Energy Office, DRCOG, Rewiring America, and Xcel Energy, all doing basically very similar or the same things, huge overlap between our programs. Just to run through those quickly, we'd love to have them come talk to you all at some point, we think. But you know, our $200 million program in the next 2.5 years, Xcel Energy plans to expend about $330 million in clean heat programs throughout their territory. The Energy Office has $100 million for their Here in Homes programs, also through the Inflation Reduction Act. Is that right? Through the federal government, EPA. Rewiring America is part of a large coalition, and they've been really coming up with creative solutions and driving down costs in the market. And then the Collective Clean Energy Fund has opportunities to subsidize low interest financing, which is another huge barrier and a really huge opportunity. They're also working in workforce as well. So we are partnering with these folks on a regular basis. We are meeting about every week with them for various program mechanics, for marketing, and for workforce to make sure we're all on the same page, see where our programs can overlap. And so we're just making these dollars, almost $1 billion in this region over the next 5 years, you know, just really synergetic, and so that we're all marching towards the same place together. All right, program implementation oversight. This is the kind of org chart we put into the work plan. We haven't modified this much. The 4 program managers and myself are already hired, as well as our business operations manager, Sharon. We are deep into the process of hiring all those folks underneath there. Some job offers will be going out this week and next, we believe. So super excited to get staffed up here. Your role as the technical committee is to kind of help us with your subject matter expertise, right? So there is an oversight committee and the DRCOG board, but we want you to be the ones that really thoroughly vet our proposals, our policies, our budgets, so that when it goes to those next levels of committees, that it's a really smooth sailing up that chain, right? But we also want your strategic and visionary programmatic guidance. You all are in the weeds, you know, out there implementing this stuff every day. And so the best you can do to help guide our program, see our blind spots, and then go out and be ambassadors for this program, you know, so bring the things you're seeing here out to your communities, out to your networks, and promote our program so that it's as successful as it can be. And I think this is my last slide. Oh, there's Clay and Mac over there in their Halloween costumes. They're just huge fans of heat pumps of all kinds. You know, when we implement this program, we're thinking equity first. We want our region's most vulnerable populations to benefit from this transition and not be left behind. We are looking for a market transformation. As I said, we don't want to be doing this in 5-10 years. We want this to become business as usual. We are wanting to learn from our peers and from the experiences that have gone out there as well, but we want to drive forward with innovation. And we have the opportunity to do that, especially with strategic guidance from folks like you. And we just want to become the model. We think this is the place, this is the time. We are the right, this is the moment where we can prove to not just the United States of America, but the entire world that this transition is possible and can lead to better outcomes for residents that live in these buildings. That's it for me. I think I'll pause. Actually, Ron, you take over here.
Oh, thank you, Robert. I think we have a few minutes questions for Robert. We are going to delve into some depth on the 4 main program areas as well after the overview, but if there's any questions for Robert, certainly.
Yeah, you want to talk to those folks, not me. I just send the emails. All right.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Great. I am so excited to be here today and to put some faces with names that I've worked with virtually since I've been in this role. I am Chris Selk, the Communications Program Manager for Building Decarbonization. And I think Robert puts me second in the order because he and I definitely agree that communications and community engagement touch every aspect of this program, and every aspect of this program influences our messaging and how we communicate that. I like to think of communications as the soil that the seeds of the program grow in. And if you kind of picture in your mind a program schedule, ideally communication starts before day 1 and sunsets with the program. So I am really excited to be able to come to DRCOG, work with all of you on what I see as a really transformational program for our region. All that's to say that we also have some challenges. And the 2 that I think we've identified as a team are up here on the screen. First and foremost, few people know what a heat pump is. And if they do, they don't know how a heat pump works. And many people think that they don't work in Colorado. So that last clause is completely inaccurate. I'm happy to report with the emerging technology in heat pumps, they do work very well in Colorado. As a matter of fact, they're the most popular way to heat homes in Scandinavia, which is significantly colder than Colorado. The average winter day in Sweden is 23 degrees, and the average winter day in Leadville is 30. And I've lived in Colorado for 2 years, and I know that if it plays in Leadville, it can play in other parts of Colorado. So more broadly, building decarbonization is a technical concept that doesn't really resonate with people. So we need to find a way to make people understand the personal benefits to them of electrification of their homes and buildings. So how are we going to do that and meet these challenges? Hand in hand with our communications and community engagement consultants, we are going to create marketing and engagement campaigns that do 3 things. They ideate, create, and motivate. So what do we mean by those 3 bullet points? Ideate, you can see it in the first 4 letters, idea. We're going to take 3 to 4 months working with our consultant to interview stakeholders, run focus groups, do surveys, and come up with a very cohesive and creative brand that is going to run for the duration of the campaign. Building decarbonization doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, and so we do find ourselves in need of a brand that is short and memorable for folks to run the duration of the program. The second bullet point, create. We're going to work hand in hand with our consultant to create a memorable public awareness campaign. A lot of that work is going to come from those first 3 to 4 months of that discovery phase to make sure that we have all the information that we need to build a creative approach that's going to resonate with all of the audiences that we need to reach. And third, this campaign will motivate people. A lot of this is about behavior change, and we are going to be challenging some long-held and deeply ingrained beliefs that people have about how they heat and cool their homes and the importance of electrification. So we feel very strongly that we have got the team in place to do that. So I'm going to start by talking about our communications and marketing contract. So this is a $15 million contract that encompasses all of the bullet points and more that are on this slide. The first step is really partnering with that communications consultant who not only embraces the concept of what we're trying to do, but they're also as committed to it as we are. And we feel that we are bringing on a fantastic expert in this field. Sukal Advertising and Design is going to be working with us on the breadth of this work. They have a long history in Colorado of taking very complex challenges and boiling them down to simple ideas that really resonate with people, and we're going to be testing their mettle on this program. So what does this contract comprise? First and foremost, that creative, memorable brand that I talked about on the last slide, and then secondly, the campaign that is going to inspire people to act. This third bullet point I'm very excited about. It's a public relations, media strategy, and targeted advertising by campaign. When you hear my fellow program managers talk about their responsibilities in this program, there are going to be some really innovative ideas. And really innovative ideas mean earned media. And for those of you who aren't familiar with that term, it means free publicity. So if we can get a toehold with local, regional, and national media on some of these fantastic ideas that Clay, Mac, and Greg have, we love free and we love positive. So we're definitely going to be leveraging all those opportunities that we can for earned media throughout the duration of the program. It also includes a user-friendly, attractive website. Mac Prather is going to be talking a lot about incentives and rebates, and that is public-facing and public interaction. So we're going to make sure that the website is accessible, attractive, easy to navigate, so that people can get on there, figure out all the cost savings that they're looking at for these rebates and incentives, and really get excited about that. And then lastly, we have customizable content toolkits for area stakeholders. Sorry, my mouth gets really dry. I've been really fortunate since I've been in this role to work with people like Amanda Perkins from Adams County to kind of coalesce all of our messaging strategies. It's really important that we're all kind of singing from the same choir book on messaging as it regards this program. And Sukal is going to help us create these toolkits that we can push out and work on our jurisdictions with to make sure that we are all putting out the same message. It needs to be cohesive and consistent. Many communications professionals will tell you that an inconsistent message is often worse than no message at all. So we're going to do everything we can up front to avoid that from happening. This leads to the community engagement aspect of the program. This is a $4 million contract, and something that I think we are all extremely excited about regarding community engagement is that well over half of that $4 million is going directly to community-based organizations or CBOs in the form of grants. So $2.2 million has been earmarked as part of a granting framework that we're going to be working with our community engagement consultant in standing up. And these CBOs will be able to apply for varying amounts of grant money to really help us with the public involvement aspect of the campaign. Historically, CBOs have always done this work on programs like this, but they have not been compensated for their time. And this is really an emerging best practice in the world of public involvement. And I was not part of writing the RFP for this procurement award, but I'm very excited that it was part of the approach to community engagement because it really gives us an opportunity in the Denver region to right-size this approach to CBOs and to set the table moving forward for a more equitable approach to engagement. I'm really excited also about this third bullet, which is transcreation. So for those of you who are not familiar with this term, this is another emerging best practice in public involvement. And what it does is it takes the process of translation a couple steps further. What it really does is takes your source language and applies the tone and context of that source language into the targeted language. There is a real gap historically between translation and transcreation, and so many the community members that we're trying to reach through this program are going to spot inauthenticity and disingenuity very quickly. And transcreation really allows us to kind of get ahead of that and create a context and a message that really resonates with people in a genuine manner. So I am thrilled that that was also written into RFP and that our consultant is very experienced with transcreation. So very excited about that. Lastly, you guys, I hope it's obvious at the end of our time today that we value your partnership and your participation in this committee. We cannot do it without you. Partnership is not only important and vital to a program like this, it's absolutely essential. And we have a lot of smart people, a lot of subject matter experts in this room that we're going to be calling upon time and again over the next 4.5 years. So please don't block our calls. I would just ask for my part of the program, if you are familiar with any community-based organizations that you feel would be good grantees and good boots on the ground community engagement, like extension of staff for us, please get in touch with me. I'd love to talk with them. I've already had the pleasure of talking with a few EDs from CBOs. They're so excited about this. I'm just extremely proud of our approach to this. I've been in strategic communications for a very long time, and hearing from these groups that we would love to help you, but we do not have the capacity or the financial ability to do it, and we can come back and say, we are here to help you, is incredibly gratifying. And I'm just thrilled and so proud to be part of this program when we can stand up ideas like this one. So you're ambassadors for us. Please go forth and spread the word and bring back any information to us that you feel is going to help us. And again, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time.
Any questions for Chris? Don't run away.
Questions? On. Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right, is this better?
Yeah, okay. I can hear you.
It's transcreation across language, but also possibly political divides and industry divides as well. So the de-siloing, if possible, of the industry groups and individuals, you know, the folks that have to get this work done.
Yes.
And how to separate that divide in some manner and attract them on that cultural perspective.
No, I'm really glad you asked about that, Sean, because I do think that transcreation is a lot more than just language-based. I think it's how we shape our messages to all of the demographics that we're trying to reach. And it's, I will be honest, if I will say this is the part of the program that I worry about the most, is making sure that we find the right avenue of messaging for the right audience, because it is varied. There are a lot of different perspectives. There are so many different communities and people that we need to reach. And while that might not extend directly to transcreation, part of that is really being very thoughtful and pragmatic about how we approach each of those audiences. It's why in the work plan, we set up a community engagement approach for each aspect of the program. There's not one umbrella CE approach to building decarb. There's one for workforce and industry. There's one for energy incentives, rebates, and light acts. There's one for building code policy. So we need to be thinking, it's on us to make sure that we think through how we're going to best reach all of those different demographics. Anybody else? Okay.
Chris, move on to an overview of the workforce and industry development programs. Clay.
All right, test. Good morning. How's this? Can everyone hear me okay? Okay. Well, good morning. My name is Clay McComb, new member of DRCOG, Denver Regional Council of Governments. I had the pleasure of working for the City and County of Denver for about the last 2 years before this, under my old supervisor, Shannon Jan. And I just give full credit for the opportunity I have to be able to stand here and be a part of this work to mentors. I think good mentors prepare you for opportunities like this. And Shannon and Liz Babcock have been great mentors to me and encouraged me to pursue opportunities like this. So just a huge shout out to my old boss there. We're going to talk about workforce and industry. For every incentive that goes out, every policy change that goes out, when we're talking about heat pumps, there is a contractor, boots on the ground, installing this equipment. And right now we don't have enough of them, to put it pretty frankly. We have a skills gap and a labor gap here in the HVAC industry. Our skills gap pertains to the existing or incumbent industry of the HVAC contractors. We've done studies that show only about 10% market adoption in this Denver region are properly trained on quality installation of cold climate heat pump technology. So 10% market adoption. We have our work cut out for us. We don't just want everyone installing heat pumps without training. That can lead to poor installs, risks for the homeowner. So we want to make sure that we get to 100%, but that 100% are properly trained on quality install. And then we have a labor gap. We just simply don't have enough workers in the trades. And maybe, Chris, that's a branding issue, rebranding trades to building sciences, climate tech, green jobs. We're noodling on different ways to get more adoption, but hopefully these programs will put a dent in that gap. How are we going to solve the problem? 3 simple strategies. 1, make heat pumps easy, simple, and business as usual for the contractor. We're pushing for a market transformation here to where when your furnace dies or your water heater dies, it's not even a question of if you're going to get a heat pump or not. It's business as usual. And that comes with serving the contractors. So that's bullet 1. Bullet 2 addresses the labor gap, creating 3 green workforce centers across the region to fill that labor gap, and then targeted outreach for underrepresented populations, not just filling that labor gap, but being intentional about who is getting these opportunities for economic mobility. We know this can be a quality job. We know our friends over at the Pipe Fitters, Sergio, advocate for how great of a career this can be, and we want to get the word out about that. Okay, so we're going to start with existing industry. So we're talking about the incumbent workforce here, a $4.5 million contract for a contractor navigation hub. This closed on February 25th. We're in the process of selecting a vendor right now. So very exciting. This is going to be our first program for workforce and industry. Hopefully this will be a one-stop shop that connects HVAC contractors with all of the tools you will need for a heat pump project. There's a lot of excitement in this industry right now, a lot of startups happening to serve our HVAC contractors, a lot of rebates, a lot of applications, but it's patchwork, it's everywhere, and it's frankly a burden on the contractor to navigate that. So how do we hit the easy button? And that's the goal of this hub, is to hit the easy button for contractors. A one-stop shop, a web platform that has all of these helpful tools, and our performance metric is to serve 1,000 contractors to make their heat pump projects simple, easy, and business as usual. We hope to have a web platform like this where we're showcasing all the different tools and resources. A small business scaling program will also be included in this contractor hub. 6-month training course for small HVAC businesses. We know that the administrative burden isn't as heavy for large corporations that have admin staff back at the office. But for the one-man or one-woman show who's taking incoming client calls while they're on I-25 going to the next project, We want to make those businesses flourish and shine and grow with this energy efficiency movement. This is probably the biggest lift of the contractor hub, and that's live heat pump agents or contractor agents. The amount of paperwork cannot be understated that it takes to apply for all of the rebates and get all of the equipment for one single project. We've thought about training contractors on how to navigate those rebates, make it a little bit easier. But we also had the thought, what if we just took that part of the job away and said, hey, we'll handle all the paperwork. You just go do what you do best, which is get a satisfied customer with a quality install. That's what we hope to accomplish with these contractor agents, is a team of live agents that will do all of the paperwork for a contractor's project, start to finish, for free. Very excited about that. And then lastly, this is feedback we've gotten from industry, from Sean Lamons over here, is a master training calendar of all of the heat pump trainings happening across the region. We know they're happening, but where they're happening and who's hosting, again, is patchwork. So one calendar with links to sign up for trainings in the same central spot. That is all within this one contract. So whoever we decide for this $4.5 million contract, we are depending on them for this market transformation. Okay, getting over to the labor industry. How do we fill the trades gap? That's going to be our next contract that is out right now for application. So I encourage you to reach out to your local workforce centers and have them apply. This is for green workforce hubs, $5.2 million. If anyone's ever interacted with a public workforce center, this is going to operate in the same type of function. There will be 3 locations strategically placed across the DRCOG region, where there will be a physical space where you can make an appointment, go meet with a career coach, and get connected to training resources and jobs in building sciences. It's not just limited to HVAC and energy efficiency. We need more electricians in order to keep up with this work. Pipe fitters, steam fitters, sheet metal, basically, again, whatever branding we come up with, Chris, getting connected to those trades, apprenticeships, our friends over at Local 208. That's what these green workforce centers will do. These will also eliminate barriers to employment, which we know is a big reason why there's not as much adoption or diversity in the trades. So stipends for wraparound services for job seekers, like childcare, like transportation, cost of tools, cost of trainings. A significant portion of that $5.2 million will go towards the job seeker to remove those barriers. And then lastly, representation, who's filling the trades gap. This is probably the program I'm most excited about launching. This is called the Growth Access Programs, or GAPS, as we're calling it. We're hoping to minimize the gap in representation when it comes to this industry. So this contract will have 3 prongs to it. The first 2 programs weren't directly trainings. This one is. This is a contract for heat pump trainings customized for 3 specific demographics that are underrepresented. So we're going to have a Justice Impacted GAP program. This is in partnership with and the sign-off from State Attorney General Phil Weiser to start an apprenticeship training behind prison walls in Colorado for low-level offenders that are set to release in 6 months or less. Start their apprenticeship behind walls, get connected to an employer behind walls, and then upon release, finalize their apprenticeship and start employment right away. A third of the American workforce has some sort of background with the criminal legal system. So this is a very progressive program, and I'm so excited that Attorney General Phil Weiser is on board with this. A multicultural gap, this is addressing language barriers, non-native English speakers. This is important for the full journey as well. We have a LIDAC program that Mac's going to talk about. We have homes that we're going to retrofit where English is not the first language being spoken. So who is the contractor coming to do that job? Can they even talk to the homeowner about this invasive appliance replacement project? Can we do a completely Spanish-led training with Spanish-speaking students connecting to Spanish-speaking contractors to do installs in Spanish-speaking households. That's kind of the end goal for that program. Really excited. And then lastly, youth. I think we all know that, you know, we need more youth engaged in these trades, but the data shows that about a third of all trades, not just heat pumps, about a third of all trades are set to retire statistically in the next 10 years. So heat pumps or not, we're gonna have a trades problem very soon here. We already do. So how do we get involved with Denver Public Schools, after school CTE programs, knocking out an apprenticeship after your senior year of high school, and really talking to mom and dad about those dinner table conversations. Hey, maybe I don't want to go to CU Boulder. Maybe I want to do this sweet apprenticeship at the local pipe fitters union. It costs $208 a year, right, Sergio? Yep, local 208. So, starting to get more youth engaged in these programs. So those are the GAPS programs. Those will likely be 3 separate contracts that go out. We don't expect one entity to be a subject matter expert for all 3, and we are looking for subject matter experts to do that training. Okay, support and feedback. Workforce is just one of those programs that bleeds into everything. I'm sure everyone in this room has some connection that's going to be valuable here, whether it's your local workforce center, employer connections, wraparound service providers, all the above. So just please talk to me, please email me. I'm super aggressive on LinkedIn, so add me, and I would love to connect with you all. Thank you so much.
Any questions for Clay?
I have a question. Thank you for your presentation. And a very important part of expanding the industry in this direction would be training and qualifications for building plans examiners and inspectors as well. And we're just wondering if that component is integrated into any of the elements that you described.
Not directly with these programs, just to be honest. I will say that we are investing in more support for local jurisdictions when it comes to that training through our building policy collaborative. So Greg will definitely touch on that, but we understand that it's a holistic approach and we need more training there too.
Okay. All right, next up, an overview of the Incentives Energy Advising Low Income Communities Programs. Mac Prather.
Yeah, thank you. Again, Mac Prather, like Clay, coming to you all from City and County of Denver, where I had the pleasure of working on some of their incentive programs. I really do feel like we are, as a team, kind of standing on the shoulders of giants, building on these really new programs that folks like Boulder County, and Denver have started, and learning from what they've done to build really successful programs here at DRCOG. We're going to be continuing to lean on all of you to help us make these the best in the state. Just to kind of reiterate what Clay said about that market transformation, really we know that we will eventually be installing heat pumps as the norm in Colorado. What we're trying to do with these programs is accelerate that transformation so that we're doing it sooner and we're getting those benefits sooner. With all the jobs and all the training that Clay's programs are providing, the other side of that we have to provide are projects. We need people out there asking for heat pumps, installing this equipment to create those opportunities for the workforce. And so that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to be laser focused on cold climate heat pumps, on heat pump water heaters, and when we're doing that, making sure that we're not doing unnecessary upgrades to electrical infrastructure for buildings. We know that has a big impact at scale, so we're going to be paying attention to that. And of course, pairing weatherization and energy efficiency together with these measures, so we're doing it all at the same time. We will be working in commercial spaces, but really focused on those kind of strategic measures and investments. So maybe not the big buildings here in downtown Denver, but a lot of those measures that are similar to residential spaces. Are you all hearing me okay? I'm not good with mics. Again, hitting back on that market transformation goal, long term, We want these programs to make highly efficient all-electric buildings the status quo in Colorado. And we want this system to be easy to navigate both by the homeowner, by the building owner, and by the contractors, like Clay was talking about. To do that, we will have incentive programs, custom one-on-one energy advising, and programs to support lower income households at no cost. Again, we're going to be really focused on this cold climate heat pump technology. All of the work we do has to benefit the contractors. These are businesses that we're talking about. So we know, like Clay said, the landscape is complicated right now. And what we create has to be a service to the people that are actually installing this equipment. So why do we need incentives? The bottom line, again, these projects are really complicated. If you've had an old water heater go out in the past, 5 years, you know that it is not easy to replace your water heater with the same old water heater that you had before. That's a complicated process. Not only for the homeowner, but especially for those HVAC installers, folks that are, like Clay said, dealing with this patchwork of requirements and programs, probably 5 or 6 licenses if you're an HVAC installer across jurisdictions, and you're trying to navigate 4 or 5 rebate programs and fill out these applications, and ultimately sell a job to the customer. So it's hard, it's complex. For the homeowner, the incentive helps us, of course, buy down that cost of the better cold climate heat pump, but it also allows us to kind of change hearts and minds. It allows us to signal what's the better alternative for these projects. Really critical to this is something we're working on right now, a single list of approved contractors for all programs in the Front Range. Right now, like Xcel Energy, the state, Denver, everyone has their own list of contractors working in their programs. And it's our goal to create and consolidate one simple list. We're working with all those organizations to make that happen. For the contractor, incentives have to support their sales of this cold climate heat pump equipment and similar projects. And what we're working towards is one simple application that's going to combine incentive programs across the region. Sean has been a really big advocate for making incentives that are easier for contractors, that work for them. Of course, we have to balance that with the taxpayer dollars that we're spending and the requirements of that. But at the end of the day, this has to work for our community of contractors. That's going to be tightly coordinated with the contractor navigation hub that Clay is leading. And to support those incentives, we're going to be offering that face-to-face energy advising. This will be somebody who is able to sit down with you as a homeowner, much like those contractor navigation agents, and help you really understand the project you're trying to plan soup to nuts. Who do you need to talk to? What incentives are available to you? And how do you compare quotes from all these different installers you're working with? So we want to build that on kind of 3 foundational ideas. One is trust, so that those homeowners and building owners have a third party to talk to. It's not just their contractor. It's not the city and county or DRCOG, but a real expert. We want to build it on simplicity so that an expert can sit down and help explain these really complicated projects and make them approachable, and always promote quality. So make sure that homeowners understand the expectations they should have of their contractors and people working on these projects. The next program is our full service program, really focused on low income households. This is not a rebate program or an incentive program, but it is a no cost service to households that are low income or have vulnerabilities. I think it was Chris, you mentioned just the messaging, how we think about these programs. A lot of the folks in this room are experts in climate or buildings or environment, and we tend to think about these problems at the high level. But frankly, I think most people in Colorado are worried about the bills they're paying, staying cool in the summer, and taking care of mom and dad or their kids. And those are the things we're really trying to address with this program. Real material needs, things like cooling, air quality, all at no cost. This is going to be really tightly coordinated with Chris's community engagement as well. And there are some innovations here. Of course, it's going to be a regional program, but we want to look at taking advantage of kind of social networks and the engagement and outreach Chris will be leading. We want to really be focused on indoor air quality improvements and health improvements like added cooling and all of the jobs that will be generated from this program. So that's workforce opportunities guaranteed. This is not a program that's innovative in nature, meant to deliver the best quality service to the people that can benefit from it the most. But if we are looking for those innovative opportunities, we also have a $6 million innovation pilot program. This is going to offer small grants to CBOs and businesses to help them pilot new approaches, new technologies, new business models. This is a really exciting opportunity to try some of those innovative approaches. All three of these programs are kind of in process. Right now, our innovation incentives and energy advising are at being procured. We're open for procurement right now. Full service, low income program. We're still finalizing design and some details there, and that RFP will launch a little bit later this spring. But both of those programs we anticipate launching at least in the pilot or the first phases by the end of this year. For the roles of people in this group, obviously we need your expert opinions kind of as we design these incentives and measures. Again, going back to the goal, the landscape is complicated right now. So if you're, depending on where you live, what utility serves you, what county you're in, the incentive for installing a cold climate heat pump is anywhere from several $1,000s to $500. And we have to figure out how to implement a program that works across all those jurisdictions and utilities. We'll need your input there. We're going to have a lot of work focused on quality installation. So your help with that program is appreciated. And like Chris said, outreach, reaching folks, reaching communities that can benefit from this the most, and spreading the word about our program. Thank you.
Mac, any questions? Hope you're all getting a sense from these presentations of how interconnected all of these components are and how thoughtful the folks were that put this together in terms of these 4 key programs. So if there's no questions for Mac, off to Greg Meow to talk about the Building Policy Collaborative, the 4th program element.
All right, hello everyone. Unlike Mac and Clay, I am not coming to you from the city of Denver. But I am an attorney by trade, and I've primarily worked throughout my career on legal issues in housing, planning, and the built environment. And I'm really excited to take those skills and work with our communities to adopt building policies that will really help us reach our net zero greenhouse gas emissions goals. So what is the policy problem we're trying to address, and why do we need a building policy program? Well, first, there's an inconsistent patchwork of up-to-date and out-of-date building codes, regulations, and processes, which contribute to disparities in our built environment and can cause confusion and difficulties for builders, contractors, and residents throughout our region. Second, there are significant costs and challenges for local governments in adopting, enforcing new building codes. And while fundamentally the goals of the policies that we're pushing are relatively simple, the ins and outs of policy implementation and enforcement require trained staff that many local jurisdictions don't have at this point in time. And third, there's uncertainty regarding the on-the-ground impact of the policies that we're looking to adopt. Sorry, can you all hear me? Is that coming through? Okay. Particularly given that there's an involving regulatory, political, and legal landscape that we're all navigating together. Many of the policies that we need to accomplish the goals that we have, face legal and political headwinds, and it can be really intimidating to try to tackle those challenges alone, especially as a smaller jurisdiction. So how are we going to solve this problem? Well, first, we're going to be providing DRCOG and peer support for consistent policy adoption throughout our region and consistent implementation of those policies to help communities tackle the challenges around policy adoption, getting things through city council or county commissioner meetings, and then really navigating those implementation challenges. Second, we'll be providing a lot of financial support to participating jurisdictions to hire and train new staff to support community outreach, to do the enforcement and do the inspections that will lead to successful policy implementation. And third, we're going to be doing some research to address some of the information gaps and misinformation that's out there right now that may be raised in opposition to the policy adoption and implementation that we're pursuing. We're not going to shy away from that. Apologies for the lack of pictures on the transition. Don't know what happened there. So the vehicle that we're going to be using to address these challenges is the Building Policy Collaborative, which is really a three-part program. The Building Policy Collaborative is our effort to bring all of the DRCOG communities together to accomplish our goals in a collective manner. It consists of three elements that I'll discuss later, but they're all work together to drive energy efficiency and climate pollution reduction through effective policy implementation, to develop collaborative solutions to amongst our communities, to common and shared policy implementation and enforcement challenges, all with the effort of lowering the energy cost burden for occupants over the lifetime of buildings and equipment. And again, as everyone else has said, to transform the market in the Denver metro region in combination with all of the other elements of this program. So the first and largest portion of my program is the jurisdictional support program. And that is $34.8 million to be distributed amongst and between the participating local jurisdictions to support local capacity to adopt and implement updated energy codes, building performance standards, emissions and equipment standards, licensing requirements, permitting standards and processes, and other policies that we'll be identifying as a group together. This fund is intended to be used in conjunction with the dollars. Well, actually, I should amend that. We're still navigating how this is going to be working with CEO's program. They have their own separate program, and sort of the overlap with the building's eligibility is something that we're currently navigating. On average, this will, if everyone to participate, if we were to distribute all of this money right now to everyone across the region in a purely equal manner, it would average out to about $600,000 per jurisdiction over the next 4 years. And it will enable local governments to implement, enforce, and collaborate on building decarbonization policies and support direct staff capacity, whether that's hiring new staff or contracting for additional services. And really our goal, right now, we've been doing a lot of work already to try to get this money to our local jurisdictions as soon as possible. And we're really trying to make sure that by this fall, they're able to start the hiring process for implementation. We know that there's a lot of communities that don't have capacity right now to do policy adoption and implementation, and they need staff to do that. And so we want to make sure we're getting that money to them ASAP. So in support of that, we've to figure out how we're going to do this the right way. We've had 3 community workshops so far, and local government feedback so far is centered around developing essentially a formula funding methodology for distributing this funding across our jurisdictions based on a number of different criteria that have been workshopped. We're also in the process of finalizing sort of the eligible uses for these funds, again, based on sort of local feedback. We know that local feedback has really identified staff capacity, policy development, planning and implementation, and community engagement as local areas of local need. And we're really incorporating that into sort of the pre-application packet that we'll be distributing, so that when folks come in and they see what the grant program that we're rolling out, they'll be able to sort of plug and play on sort of how they can use that money ASAP. So just to go a little bit into our first working proposal that we're going to be raising for discussion here in the coming months. In terms of the first round of that formula funding that we've been looking at, we're really trying to get this money out starting August, through September. We're getting into the contracting with our local governments so that they can they can start drawing that money down with grants ranging from around $50,000 to roughly $2 million, still to be determined, and we'll get your feedback on this as well. But really trying to make sure that we're distributing based on a number of different weighted criteria, including sort of existing population and existing jobs, which sort of gets at our commercial spaces, as well as our projected future growth, both in terms of commercial space and residences, so that we're really adjusting and distributing it in an equitable manner. And as I said, we'll be narrowing down our eligible uses, and we'll be bringing that sort of packet of eligible uses to you all for feedback in the future. And then once we know who all is participating and who's not, and what money is left over in this program, we're going to we'll run a second round, which will likely be a competitive grant process, so that we can make sure that we're spending down all the money that we've been allocated. We'll likely have some criteria there to really encourage people who didn't participate in the first round to jump on board. But also we'll have some money set aside for jurisdictions that are already doing good work, but have identified maybe some stretch goals or more ambitious goals that they want to pursue, that they can come to us and seek sort of additional support from us through. So we have our next and sort of final jurisdictional support program workshop coming up in a couple of weeks. So we want to make sure that we get as much participation from our local jurisdictions, so that they can give us as much feedback as possible on how to make this grant as easy to administer. We want to make sure that this isn't something that people think, hey, there's, the administrative burden is going to eat up half of my budget, right? So we want to make sure that we're designing this in a way that's easy for our locals to navigate, and so that they know what they will be getting, right? So we'll be bringing some initial calculations to that, so that jurisdictions can begin essentially the budgeting process. We know that there's a long lead time in municipal budgeting, and to be able to spend money in the fall, it means you have to incorporate that into your budget now. So we're going to be doing as much as we can to get as much information to our local jurisdictions as possible, as soon as possible, so that they can begin budgeting now. They can identify sort of their work plans over the summer and be really ready to roll as soon as we've got the contracting complete in the fall. So then the second aspect of our program is going to be the Building Policy Collaborative Peer Network. And this is a $2.5 million contract for regional policy network facilitation. And so this is going to be our community of practice, so that we're working and walking lockstep with each other over the course of the next 4.5 years. This will provide space for our local jurisdictions to meet with each other, to discuss challenges, to workshop implementation challenges and enforcement challenges together, and to learn and access some of the experts in the field as they're navigating specific policies ins and outs. One of the first things that we're going to be doing this year as we get this up and going is to really work with our communities to give them agency in identifying sort of the priority policies that are going to get us to our zero emission goals, and to have them adopt a policy roadmap over the next couple of years of not just building code updates, but also building performance standards and other policies that will help us achieve our greenhouse gas emission goals, our reduction goals. So we're going to be, I've just finished the process of making a recommendation on a vendor that So we're doing that FND meeting on the 19th. Really looking forward to bringing them on board and having a real launch meeting with all of our jurisdictions about the grant program, but also to begin sort of this peer network so that everyone knows they're not going it alone, right? We're moving as a region, and you know, we're going to make this change together. Really quickly to review, for that roadmap, you know, I think it's, you know, we're going to have jurisdictions starting at all sorts of different points. So it's not going to be an overly prescriptive roadmap. We're going to have allowances for local jurisdictions to tailor their policies to their local context, but also still feel like they're working together towards our broader collective goals. Some of the policies we'll be looking at include the building codes, but also, as I said, you know, performance standards for buildings, as well as emissions and equipment, you know, and addressing some of those challenges that were identified by Mac and Clay and others in terms of, you know, the policies that our contractors have to navigate with permitting and licensing and things of that nature. And then the last aspect of our program is our research budget. So we do have a $1 million budget that we set aside and earmarked for local data gathering and analysis. This is really to support as applied kind of analysis of what the policy impact is going to be in our communities so that we can do the case making necessary to get our electeds on board with policy adoption and implementation, and to address some of those you know, misconceptions around what the impact of policy is going to be. You know, I'm very familiar with the fact that a lot of people see policy as a stick, you know, and it can be seen a lot of the time as a negative. What we want to make sure is that people see the policies that we're adopting you know, that they work in conjunction with the rest of our program, and that there's a lot of opportunity here for our communities and for our residents to really improve health and improve the environment, and to really access the supports that we have to do this. In some ways, you know, the state's forcing our hand, right? We've got state updates that are coming down in terms of building code updates. This is an opportunity for our communities to get ahead of that and to go one step beyond. So we're in the process of, you know, finalizing the RFP and what that structure is going to look like. We've identified a number of key, key questions, including sort of the costs and benefits of local of strengthening building codes and emission standards, the equity effects and impacts that those policies will have, baselining some of the general sort of state of electrification, adoption of these technologies, as well as sort of what the policy landscape looks like there. And then also identifying sort of the as applied, what's going to be the most effective solutions, not just in terms of the capital improvements like Mac was talking about, in terms of, you know, how do we, you know, get the best bang for our buck for our individuals, but also for our communities and those sort of larger metrics in terms of health and, you know, greenhouse gas reductions. So what's the technical committee's role? Well, as everyone has said before, really looking for your support and feedback on sort of program design for some of these issues, but really also in your support in getting the outreach and participation on policy, you know, participation in the program, and sort of that ongoing support for the policy adoption. Policy adoption is not like an easy, and implementation, they're not sort of super easy things to do. We need ongoing support and really trying to, you know, we need to build this collective understanding of how we're moving together. You know, otherwise it's, you know, as I mentioned, that sort of fear factor of going it alone can be have a real chilling effect and can be a real deterrent. So we're really going to ask you to help us, you know, reach out to our neighbors in the jurisdictions that we're having a hard time getting involved, to help tell them, you know, hey, teach them, you know, how to do this, to share the insights that we, you know, some of us have learned as we've gone through this process, and you know, help demystify some of that sort of policy adoption and implementation. And that's that.
Very much, Greg. Any questions for Greg? Yes, please.
Greg, thanks for your presentation. The question I have for you is in regard to what strategies you have in mind or are developing to counteract the very real, be they genuine or perceived, adverse impacts that these measures may have on both housing affordability as well as competitive advantages.
Yeah, and that's a great question, and one that the whole jurisdictional support team has been, which is the group of folks from local jurisdictions that have been working on this so far, has been very aware of. We've built a lot of the addressing some of those concerns into the research budget. So some of the initial things that we're trying to do and what we want to do with this is to get some of that information out this fall as people are starting this process in terms of actual cost drivers for construction and or the economic impacts in the communities. It is also built into the peer network. There is money earmarked within that for our vendors to do local analyses for communities. So, as electeds or other people are raising questions around feasibility or economic impact or, cost savings, we'll be able to do those analyses for them. So that's sort of what we're doing right now.
Thank you.
So Greg, policies and overall community or group budget that is collecting all this data from a understanding what the all of these works and all of these groups. Where is that kind of map data collection effort sitting inside of this group? Because I mean, it's a huge push, right? And understanding those impacts to communities. I mean, we look at the micro and the macro. Where is that kind of being gathered so that we, at the end of this story, have this compelling story, and more importantly, that we have the data that drives the story?
Yeah, I mean, I think it actually exists within all three aspects of my program, and it's going to be integrated really closely with everyone else's. So we're going to have, from the other programs, I think, for Mac's program, we're going to have some of the, units installed and sort of emissions, savings and health savings related to sort of that metric. With Clay, we'll have some of that data with regards to the benefits to communities from a workforce training perspective. For us, we're going to do some of that research in terms of, the baseline building stock analysis and sort of the impact of policies relative to, the existing buildings that we have, as well as sort of our projected future growth and kind of the emission savings that we'll see relative to that in our, the various different jurisdictions. Additionally, what we're trying to do through the Building Policy Collaborative is make sure that, in the policy adoption, local government capacity is stood up to be able, that's going to be part of the enforcement aspect of their programs, is to, to do measurements to make sure that they're tracking all of this, and really going to be working together with, Chris and the, sort of trying to collect all of that information and make it part of our case making as part of the website that we have. We've talked a little bit about, it's still TBD in terms of what the budget will allow of essentially, whether we can make a tool for end users to be able to sort of navigate. We're certainly going to start with some initial, research reports, but that's definitely something we've discussed about, how can we make sure that we're demonstrating the impact as policy, as all of our programs are rolling out and as communities are, adopting those policies and implementing them.
Questions for Greg? I do want to open the floor up for any general feedback or comments. I know we are going to keep this group pretty busy and I hope you got a flavor for a number of the issues that we're going to look to you to advise us on and give us feedback on, whether it's how we message the program and craft our outreach to communities and partners, to how and where we set up workforce development centers, to our work with our local jurisdictional partners around the policy collaborative and everything in between. There's a lot of very specific decisions that we're going to have to make within this overall framework that's been established for the program. And we're going to lean into you all and your various areas of expertise as we bring forward options and ideas, concepts for your feedback to help shape the details of that and the policy level decisions that will be made by the Oversight Committee and ultimately the DRCOG Board of Directors. And Greg mentioned the F&B. The F&B is the DRCOG Finance and Budget Committee that actually makes decisions for awarding contracts and our financial decisions. So acronym defining for you. So with that, again, any other overall feedback or comments before we move on?
I just want to share some gratitude. I just am stunned with how incredible the staff, like the hiring and the professionalism and your commitment to focus during really challenging times. I'm just sitting here just so proud to be a part of this and to have watched it unfold the way it has with just so much leadership. I'm just over here just smiling, and so I know Jonathan and I have been whispering, but it feels really, really incredible to see where you all are in this process and how much lift there's been. So thank you.
Not going to be all roses and rainbows and unicorns. So enjoy this moment while we have it, but I can tell you I have so much confidence shared with you in the staff to actually, and our partners to make this a reality. So.
I totally agree. It's amazing. What do we feel though about that climate in terms of political climate with respect to, and I know it's an elephant in the room, so gotta ask the question. I know the funding was secured, and we've talked a lot about that, and that's always in the premise. I don't know if the communication changes, wording, and how we charge forward with respect to navigating political landmines. But has there been any thought, strategy as to where we feel those landmines are? What are they? Are they still are they out on that?
I'll start, and I'll hand off to some of the other. And first of all, obviously, we're well aware of the political dynamic, right, and the environment in which we're operating, and it's a very dynamic situation, and it changes. And I think, first and foremost, we are actively monitoring and engaging and thinking about what those impacts may or may not be. It's my commitment, and what I continue to counsel is that we don't make decisions and operate from a position of fear or conjecture or guessing. We have to rely on information that we know, and so we're partnering with lots of folks to make sure that we have the best situational awareness that we can possibly have in a world that's uncertain right now. The good news is, and Robert spoke to it early on, we have a signed and executed contract for the grant. We are engaging and communicating with the Environmental Protection Agency staff on the program. Those are good things. Money is flowing. We're able to submit reimbursement requests to the grant and get reimbursed from the grant for the early work that we're doing. Those are all good things. I think there's no question that some of the things that were anticipated when the grant was awarded and are changing, right? There are things like environmental justice and Justice 40 that no longer exist that were part of the grant application and the grant contract. And we're going to have to navigate with the EPA about any adjustments we have to make to the program, given that those things don't exist at the federal level any longer. So we're going to work through those, but I think, we have been giving thought to what impacts those have on how we talk about the program and what the focus of the program is. But ultimately in the day, and I will get to you, Chris, because I know you've been thinking about this too. At the end of the day, we believe in benefits of this program. That benefits on air quality are universal across the region. And so the more we can talk about the broad benefits of the program and these investments to the general public, everyone's public health is at stake. My public health, my children's public health benefits from folks adopting this technology, right? And the more we can talk about that, the better, I think. Chris or anyone?
No, I agree with that. And I do feel, realistically speaking, from purely a strategic communication standpoint, there are going to have to be changes in the way that we message some aspects of this program. I'll think that we are in agreement, however, that it does not change the spirit of the program or really any of the tenets that we set forth in the work plan. It does pain me to say that we need to maybe change some of our vocabulary, but that is the climate in which we're living. I would say too, that, as Ron alluded to, there are so many other aspects of this program that are just not purely about the electrification of buildings. I mean, that's what it is on the face of it. That runs through the entire breadth of the program, but it's about economic development. It's about jobs. There are so many other messages that comprise this program that are not strictly tied to environmental justice, which no one is going to argue in this room that is not and does not remain very important. But when we are, depending on, and I alluded to it earlier in my presentation, depending on your audience, tailoring your message is super important. And it hasn't escaped us that we are in a position where we need to pull forth the other aspects of this program that are not linked directly to just climate justice, but that are the auxiliary items that have to do with that. So we talk about that internally every day, not an exaggeration. It's been a huge part of all of our conversations around this program and will continue to be, because we're carrying out this very important work during a politically turbulent time. So we need to keep having these chats.
Can I chime into this conversation? It's entirely appropriate to remain optimistic and conviction behind this question about it. Questions that I have, I'll just try to correct, is even though we have a contract in place with the EPA, is that subject to being revoked in whole or in part? And two is, assuming this program does continue, which will the market be there? Provide trainees, as we've identified, as has been identified. Will there be a sufficient amount of demand for these people, for the investment to be made, training people to do things that may not be broadly supported?
Two very different questions, I think, but I certainly understand why you put those questions together. But none of us can sit here and predict with any certainty. At the same time, this point, don't anticipate, based on our situational awareness, our conversations with our federal advocates, our conversations with the EPA. At this point, we don't have any signs that the grant will outright be revoked. Or, it can happen, but we're just not anticipating that right now. We're continuing forward with complying with the requirements that we have under that contract with the EPA on this program. We're taking those steps. We're being deliberate. We're being careful. We're being thoughtful, but we're moving ahead. And what happens in the future is going to happen in the future, and control that nor predict it. And everybody can. So that piece is that piece. But we're planning for whatever eventuality might happen. On the second piece, look, I think that's built into the DNA of this program. I think Chris talked about it, like there's a lack of knowledge. And part of this is, I mean, there's lots of barriers to the adoption of this technology. One is a lack of awareness. One is a misunderstanding of the technology. There's workforce issues, there's contractor preparation work issues. So I think what we feel like is, in total, the comprehensiveness of this program helps address your last question. That if we are successful, like we believe we can, all of you, in implementing this program, it leads to the market demand. Those are the benefits to people of actually making these own sort of domicile this point.
Maybe just to tag on just a little bit is that, you know, we have a really good relationship with our project officer at EPA, which is really beneficial to us. And, you know, we're just following our terms and conditions to the T, and it's a lot harder to take away a contract where you are, you know, fulfilling it, you know, so that's helping us. I think the other thing is that maybe two things is that there's a lot of Inflation Reduction Act money. Most of it, in fact, has gone to red congressional districts and red states. Our neighbor to the east, Nebraska, got a $300 million grant through this same program. So they'd be under the same scrutiny we would be. And I think that's a challenge for the administration. And then just the investment that's happened in this sector and the heat pump sector is not going away either, right? There has been billions and billions of dollars, both private and public dollars, invested in this industry. The technology's come a long way and it's ready for installation. We're also under the umbrella of the state, who's not going to stop being supportive of this technology and implementation. So I think we've got a lot going for us there, but obviously still keeping in mind of the risks.
Share similar thinking, which is the state has very aggressive goals. Many of the local governments have very aggressive goals. There is funding that is not federal that will continue to be invested, particularly the over $400 million from Xcel Energy through their clean heat plan for electrification. So I think there's other drivers. I will say, and it sounds like you guys are doing all the right things and we're having the right conversations in this room. It wouldn't hurt to do some scenario planning. What if, right? And then, you know, there are ways that we could generate revenue to support a program like this. And we've put so much effort into it. We've put such great thinking and collaboration into it. I think it's, you know, beholden upon this group to really do some scenario planning and think about how we could backfill in the event that, you know, even if the contract isn't canceled, you know, they fire all the people that work there to process the payments or whatever happens, right? So doing some scenario planning about how we can continue to support this program through local funding, through state funding, engaging with philanthropy, for example. You know, that's kind of on my work plan this year, is to sort of really try to bring those relationships together. And so I think this group would be a great way to sort of have that conversation and make the ecosystem of this work intact, or as intact as we can, despite those challenges.
Good advice, Elizabeth. I think I saw your,
very excited. Thank you for the comment, Susie. And I want to thank so many people that are around this table that are working on moving in the right direction with rigor and with strategy, right? That's as strong a message as we can ask for from the team. Apply rigor so it stands up to scrutiny, strategy, and what if. And, you know, being from, whether you're in the trades or whether you're in policy or whether you're in focused on the end use, why we're all doing this, there's so many reasons why to do this. And so it's about messaging, about finding the right message for the audience that you're speaking. But I don't think there's anything to hide from, but there is strategy in how you apply the rigor. So for me personally, if I seem like I'm getting animated about something, it's you know, I consider this a circle of trust, I hope. And so if I'm really going after a point, it's because I probably have some data, or I have some experience, or I have perhaps most importantly, fear, because we're all fear avoid machines. So my ask is, let's bring our A game, let's bring the data, let's think about the strategy, and trust that the people that are around us are doing their best to solve the problems at hand. On the question about contractors and culture and that change, they're just as worried about bad outcomes as, right? The reason that you hear the message, for example, heat pumps don't work, is that someone's had a bad experience. That's how do we help them move past the bad experience to a better experience with the.
Anybody else? Oh, Greg.
Thanks, Ron. I just also to sort of chime in on the general tenor of sort of concern. I want to raise my hand and say I understand that the regulatory arm here is a challenge, and so I want to be very clear that we're not planning on coming in with the dead set. You have to do X, Y, or Z. That doesn't work with messaging. It doesn't work with communities. It doesn't resonate. I think that's why it's so important that the policy arm is really embedded with the workforce development and with the incentives. There's a lot of opportunity here, and there's a lot of ways that policy can be tailored to actually make life easier, right? If we're working towards the same goals and we can actually standardize some of our permitting processes, or we can standardize some of the testing that's going to be happening throughout the region, that's going to benefit, our residents, and it's going to benefit our contractors. So I just want to make sure, to let you all know that it's important to have sticks sometimes. It's also really important to know when you're wielding them. We also, as a body, aren't, at DRCOG, we don't have that. We're going to be relying on our local government. So we're going to be really trying to make sure that we have that space where we're navigating sort of the enforcement and implementation aspects, where we can workshop that and they can implement those things in equitable manners, right? We want to make sure that, the messaging is consistent throughout our local jurisdictions in terms of how, why are we adopting these policies? What are the benefits to our communities? And how can we, really achieve what's a really nice goal, visionary goal?
Thank you, Greg. Yes, sir.
Thanks for that. I guess I was going to start with a little bit of gratitude too, and it's for everyone in this room for sharing your time in this space. And I'm guessing that we're not here because we all wanted one more meeting on our calendars. So my question is a tactical one, and maybe I'm a little too soon with this, but I was wondering, Ron or Robert or whomever could speak a little bit to process. And the reason that I ask this question is that I really want to make sure that the amazing staff is not spending time putting together great PowerPoints just to give updates to this group. How can we best support? A lot of what I heard in the slides was feedback. So how is that feedback anticipated? How can we hold ourselves accountable? We are here because we want to see this program flourish. We want to see it thrive. We want to see it succeed. And so I want to make sure that we're not just showing up on a regular cadence and just sitting here waiting for an update and then reacting on the fly. So I'm wondering if you could just share a little bit of that process.
I'm glad you went first because you were teeing me up. So thanks. So the intention is to have agendas go out a week in advance of these meetings, right? So you can kind of review the content. If you need to get feedback from your organization or whatever else, you can come to the meeting prepared. So there's that. Afterwards, those agendas and all these PowerPoints you've seen will stay there permanently on the website. So it's kind of a record of these meetings, as well as a couple of days after the meeting, the recording of the meeting will go up there for if you can't make a meeting or staff wants to review anything like that. So there's that. I think somehow we maybe didn't even mention, but I think our intention is to really launch this program somewhere in Q4 of this year, right? So there are a really big series of decisions that have to be made. Every single time you saw, in one of those slides, money going out the door from our organization to somebody else, that's a decision that's being made by you and the way it's happening as well. So the grant criteria, you know, we plan on workshopping that kind of ad hoc with staff and local government staff, but that criteria will come in front of you for you to evaluate whether the innovation grant funds are being spent the right way, the local government funds are being spent the right way. And I don't think you want to come into those decisions like just cold, right? It's probably, there might be a month of preparation. So 1 month, we maybe not an action item, but we're actually like workshopping this thing with you. Like, this is what we've come up with so far. Can you help us refine these criteria? And then the next month, you're adopting that and you know, recommending it on to the next body. So we are also very cognizant about the committee fatigue. We experience it a lot here at DRCOG, and we want to bring really meaningful decisions to you at all times. So I think there's that first 6 months, 7 months is going to be really intensively like thinking about some tough decisions, even about Boulder's money, like how that integrates with our program, how to think about regional equity and how to be spreading the peanut butter around fairly, as well as these important other funding decisions and budgetary decisions. But I also would say that there may be opportunities where we don't need to, we can skip a month and skip it if there's really nothing that's worth bringing to you all, because you're right, we don't want to just be creating presentations to share out information on a consistent basis.
I think I got it. Okay, Robert, thanks. That's really helpful. Something you just said, though, sparked another question, and maybe you could speak a little bit to decision-making authority. So a lot of what I heard is feedback, and so could you just I just want to be super clear on what our role is. Are we making decisions? Are we advising? Are we just providing feedback? And then if we are making decisions, how will those decisions be made?
So you are making recommendations to the oversight committee, and then some of those decisions go all the way up to the board, especially, again, those money out the door. So, but that said, like, I don't see the board being involved in, you know, realistically being involved to the level of depth that you are. So you might be involved for a full 2-hour meeting on grant criteria for the local government program at some point. It's recommended to the oversight committee, who probably deals with it for 30 minutes. Hopefully it's so well vetted that it goes up to the board and it's almost on the consent agenda, you know. So there is that kind of succession, right, where it has to go through these committees. But this role, the technical committee folks, you all have the far more on the ground, you know, expertise than those next 2 layers of committees. So your job is to really vet things, but also be thinking about them through the lens of those next bodies a little bit. And you may not be familiar with them, but you know, our job is to try to help you with that as well. But really dive deep into some of these things that the other bodies are not doing.
Well, I want to be sensitive to everyone's time. I don't think we anticipate these meetings always taking almost 2 hours, but I just want to first and foremost express my personal gratitude and the team's gratitude to all of you stepping up to this important work. We wanted to start today kind of scratching the surface and giving you a flavor for a number of those issues that are going to be coming back to you for more discussion, for input, feedback, and ultimately on many of them recommendations, so that we can forward with the goal of having this program ready to launch in a real way in just a few short months. It's going to come fast. There's a lot to do. I hope you got a sense for that. So really appreciate your engagement today and going forward. So no fooling, the next meeting for this group is April 1st. It was intended to be a virtual meeting, so we're not going to intend to have you all come down to DRCOG's office for every meeting, but in person about quarterly maybe, or so, kind of the cadence we're anticipating right now. Just for the next meeting, again, I am not going to chair this committee moving forward. I'm a member of the committee, but I'm not going to be chairing it. That will fall to one of you to be vice chair. So what I've asked Robert to do is he'll send out a list of the local government members on the committee. So under the committee guidelines that were adopted by our board of directors, the chair and the vice chair come from the local government members on the committee. So we'll send out that list of the folks that are eligible to serve. We'll ask for you all to give back to Robert, reply back to Robert with any nominations. That can be a self-nomination, or you can nominate one of your peers on serve as chair and vice chair, and we'll elect the chair and the vice chair of the committee at that meeting on April 1st. So be about that. Apologies for not getting that on the agenda for this. So with that, any other comments? Order. Thank you so much. Thank you for being patient with me. Good job on the mics. We'll see you in about a month virtually.